Okay, so amidst all of the great games that I played this year, of which there were a lot and still some that I need to get to, I don't think any of them have impacted me the way Conker's Bad Fur Day has impacted me. So, a little background, I have been getting more into game collecting again, now that I've had the time and money to do so. And I ran into a dude on Facebook Marketplace who was selling a bunch of N64 games, 17 of them, along with an N64. And I couldn't see what they were, but I took a gamble and I managed to get him to sell them to me for $175. And in there was a copy of Conker's Bad Fur Day, which runs for about 125 bucks. I got a really great deal from this guy. I almost straight up scammed him is what it seems like, and I hope that he doesn't somehow watch this video one day. Anyways, when I got that copy, I was like, okay, I'm just gonna ride the hype of it. I'm gonna play Conker's Bad Fur Day. So I hooked it up to my N64, my CRT, and I played through, and I loved it. There's nothing else like it. I'm sure most people know the story of Conker's Bad Fur Day at this point, but I'm going to tell the story just real quick. Rare, who made a lot of great N64 games, such as Banjo-Kazooie, Banjo-Tooie, GoldenEye, Diddy Kong Racing, Donkey Kong 64. They were working on one more game for the N64, and they were making it very similar to Banjo-Kazooie. And it was originally going to be called Conker 12 Tales, something like that. And the early tests of the game, people criticized it for being too similar to Banjo-Kazooie, so they took a really interesting approach and made it a super inappropriate, graphic, crude, disgusting M-rated game that looked like Banjo-Kazooie. And it's so captivating. Something about that cartoony, silly look of Banjo-Kazooie being so awful and crude is still interesting, especially because it's on the N64. In general, N64 games haven't really aged the best visually, but the game kind of works better because it has those aged N64 graphics. It feels just like an extension of the game's weird vibe. There's such a huge mismatch, but it's perfect. That said, the game does look really good. It released in 2001, so it was one of the final games that released on the console, so at that point, Rare really knew what they were doing. The game is bright and colorful, and the music is cheery and fun, and it's a really great looking game. Even the, disgusting areas where you're walking around in literal shit, the shit looks beautiful somehow. It's really cool, and there's the big haunted mansion that looks really cool. The game is visually, it's just a treat. But obviously the real charm of the game is getting to see the characters interact with each other. To start, Conker is awesome. He's such a stupid, horrible protagonist. He's misogynistic and violent and doesn't care about anything, and he's drunk for half of the game, but he is hilarious, unabashedly, and he breaks the fourth wall, and he just has these fun facial expressions, and again, the fact that he looks like a happy-go-lucky squirrel from a Banjo-Kazooie game, but then he's just this awful person, it just makes the game even better. The whole game is hilarious. I mean, I don't laugh out loud at a lot of things, especially if I'm by myself, but I laughed at scenes in this game. I thought they were very funny. There's the whole scene where the paint bucket is telling the broom to kill himself or whatever. And I don't know, I was losing my mind playing this game. It was so goddamn funny. It is unapologetically crude. And if you don't like that sense of humor, I think that's very fair, and you definitely won't enjoy the game. It's very much targeted at college frat boys or teenagers or whatever, but if you just accept it as it is, as just this inappropriate, completely unsophisticated game, it's fun because it really leans into how stupid it is. The plot, there's not even really a plot of the game because it sets up a plot with Conker trying to get home and with the king trying to get Conker to be his replacement for his leg and his table or whatever. So you think stuff is gonna happen, but nothing in the game has anything to do with the plot. It's more just about putting Conker in stupid situations, like having to go to the caveman area and use the dinosaurs to get into a club, and then you get contracted to kill the cavemen, and then, you know, you're in a war fighting teddy bears, and then you start fighting the Great Mighty Pooh. This is not in order, but it's just about getting Conker into dumb situations and seeing how he interacts with all the different characters. And it really works for this game. And all the characters are super funny. They're like Conker, they're all just horrible people. Every single person in this game is just horrible. Even if they start off seeming like they're very sweet and just want help, they'll go around and murder people. Or if they don't murder someone, they get murdered graphically. People explode and there's blood. And even when you die as Conker, if you fall from a great height, you just shatter into a bunch of pieces. And it just... the game is just so, like, violent and unabashedly cruel, but it's so good. It's so entertaining. Also, the vocal direction of the game just really adds to the characters, because it sounds almost like none of the voice actors are trying, but, like, deliberately so. Like, all of the characters just kind of talk under their breath. The subtitles don't pick up any of the murmurings and stammerings of all the different characters. It feels like all the characters are just barely trying. Sometimes you have no idea what they're saying, and the only reason you can understand them is because of the subtitles, and it just adds so much to the game. It's hard to describe without playing it. It just makes everything feel so unserious and silly, especially when they're all swearing and they're just like saying shit under their breath. It's so funny. It's so amazing. I'm just getting sidetracked. I started off talking about all the different scenarios, but yeah, all the scenarios are fun. Each different area of the game has a fun gimmick. They're all parodying different movies, some of which I didn't fully understand because, I mean, this game came out before I was even born, which means the movies it was referencing also came out before I was born. So that's tough. Sucks being 23 years old. Am I right? I might not include this in the video. But yeah, it's more about just putting Conker in fun situations, and it just has so much charm. But then because of these different situations, the gameplay is really interesting. It really leans into that. The core of the game is super simple. You just run around, you jump, and you can hit things with your frying pan, and that's kind of it. You don't really unlock a lot of abilities. You unlock a couple, but it stays really simple, and it works because it can branch into a lot of other gameplay styles and genres as the different situations of the game want it to. Like, you switch around from flying as a bat, or racing on little hoverboards, or you switch around and you take control of Drunk Conker and you start pissing on everything. And, you know, there's a lot of fluidity to how the game is designed, intentionally so. It's not supposed to stick into one genre of gameplay either, in addition to having the different scenarios in the game not sticking to one genre. And that makes it really interesting to play through. You're just constantly trying to figure out what the game's going to throw at you next. And then you run into one of the more divisive things about the gameplay, I would say, is that because there's so much fluidity in how the game is designed, there's sometimes a lack of direction in what you're supposed to do. It just kind of throws you into a new situation and doesn't tell you how your abilities interact with the environment. And on the one hand, that can be very frustrating as a player. I think a lot of modern games would get criticized for doing something like that, not knowing what to do. But at the same time, there's a weird satisfaction to figuring out a puzzle in an environment and figuring out how you're supposed to solve something. It's almost like not knowing what you're supposed to do adds to the game and makes it better when you do figure it out. Oh, and then there's the whole war section where you just have a shotgun and you're just running through and killing a bunch of dudes, and it becomes like a third-person shooter for like a fifth of the game. So in that sense, there's always a mystery of what's next, which for some games could definitely be bad. You wouldn't want that for a normal 3D platformer, but it made this game very fun and dynamic. And I think having the game the way it is, where it is just batshit insane and throwing Conker into weird situations, and it's inappropriate, it conditions the brain to be okay with whatever is being thrown at it. So that's one of the interesting ways the vibes of Conker's Bad Fur Day just works with the gameplay. Like a lot of the gameplay choices that get made in Conker's Bad Fur Day, I would not be okay with in other games, but because it's Conker, I'm just okay with it. It's like, yeah, whatever. Sure, do whatever you want. I'll fight things with a gun instead of platforming. Like, I don't care. Just do whatever you want. I was always interested to see what was next. Put me in a Matrix section. I don't give a shit. And then, yeah, it's less about big, expansive collectathon levels and just more about streamlined, unique platforming, which is nice because it makes it different from Banjo-Kazooie, which is the biggest comparison you want to draw to it is like, oh, this looks like Banjo, but it doesn't play like Banjo, in addition to the vibes being very different from Banjo, which is good, in my opinion, because I love Banjo, but it makes this game have much more of a distinct personality. And then I just want to talk about the ending of the game, because it is just so insane, and if you haven't played Conker's Bad Fur Day, I really do encourage you to not watch this part of the video, because I didn't know everything about the ending of the game, and it was just like a wild ride until the end. But having Conker finally get to the Big Panther boss, and then Barry just gets gunned down. So this background activity of like, oh, I need to get home to Barry, she just dies, which is insane. Like, just the game having the balls to do that. And then to immediately kill the quote-unquote main antagonist, the Panther King, by having the xenomorph come out of his chest. And then you go to space, and then you fight him, and then he's gonna kill you, and then the game quote-unquote freezes, and then Conker talks to the programmer to reprogram the game to get him back into the throne room and to kill him with the sword. And then he kills the xenomorph, and then he just gets crowned king randomly, and then he realizes he should have brought Barry back to life, and he has the whole monologue about appreciating what you have, and then the game just ends on this somber, depressing note, and you're almost like, Jesus Christ, like, what just happened? I mean, I just rattled everything off, just because it all just happens back to back to back, and you reach the credits, and you're like, what the shit just happened? But it was so cool. It makes you want a sequel. It makes you want Conker to go through and try to rectify what happened at the end of the game because it's so depressing. But at the same time, Conker is such an awful person that you almost don't feel bad for him having such a horrible ending. And then the game is just, the vibes of the game are so odd throughout that sitting through the like melancholy credits until the credits scene when Conker just gets drunk again, there's something really, really special about that. And I was just floored when I finished the game. It was just so awesome. So yeah, Conker's really good. Clearly, I have a lot of passion about it because I was just rambling this whole video. I don't know how I'm going to edit this together to be coherent. So I don't know. I might have to end up re-recording this. But I'm probably not going to because I'm lazy. But yeah, if you haven't played Conker, definitely give it a try. Just even if you just have to emulate it. It feels like one of those games that I'm going to boot up at least like once a year and just do a quick playthrough. Especially because the game is so short, especially if you know what you're doing. I feel like you could beat the game in a few hours even if you weren't trying on a replay. And I'm definitely going to replay it. I have been singing the praises to all of my friends and I loved the game. Obviously, it's a cult classic for a reason. I'm not saying anything that hasn't been said before. I just didn't realize how much I was going to love it. It's one of the most unique games I've ever played. But yeah, play Conker's Bad Fur Day, and I'm gonna go take a nap. Have a great day.